everybody. Welcome to this NYSI chat. Today with me is my colleague, Dr. Harry Lim. He's the NYSI Head of Sports Psychology. Harry, welcome.
Thanks, Les.
So, Harry, today we're going to chat about some of the issues youth coaches may be facing with their athletes who are returning to training after circuit breaker. There are certain psychological perspectives that we would want youth coaches to bear in mind during phase 2. So maybe, Harry, you could just sketch out some of the topics you'd like to cover today.
Yeah, sure. I think based on our understanding of the situation and what's been going on worldwide, with the literature going on as well, there are 3 main topics that we are looking to cover today. One is on loss and grief relating to the cancellation of competitions. The second point is on motivation or the lack of motivation due to the changing sporting calendar uncertainty moving forward. And lastly, we wanted to focus on this issue of coach support during this period of time, because it's also a difficult period for coaches as well.
So let's take the first topic about loss. Maybe you could just elaborate on some of the issues surrounding this.
Yeah, so this issue of loss is akin to when you lose a loved one, the death of a loved one. And usually people associate loss with that aspect, but actually loss could also manifest in the sense of loss of opportunity or loss of a goal. And in this sporting sense, the postponement or the cancellation of major sporting events has a similar effect, or can have a similar effect on athletes. And some will be more affected by others, but we can almost be certain that there will be that level of people will get affected regardless. And for some of these people, it could be the last chance to compete in some of these games, right? For instance, for the Youth Olympic Games and for those junior and youth competitions, some of the athletes could be in the final year of that age bracket or that age range, such that once this opportunity is gone, they no longer can participate in these events. So this could be a difficult time for these athletes, because they would have lost this opportunity to be able to, I think, clock a certain milestone in their athletic career. And because of that, they will be experiencing a myriad of emotions, ranging from frustration, anger, disappointment, and sadness. So I think these are some of the potential emotional fallout we are guessing would happen based on the cancellation or the postponement of some of these key competitions.
Yeah, Harry, I like your point about this being possibly their last youth championship, or for some of them their only Youth Olympic Games, but then they miss it and that's it. Sometimes it's easy to forget that it's for the athlete, for the youth athlete, it may be a way bigger deal than for the coach, because for the coach this could be their 4th Youth World Championships, but for the athlete that's it, the only one that they will miss. So what are some of the considerations for coaches that they can take into bear in mind so that they can help their youth athlete overcome this?
Yeah, I think coaches play a very important role, and a very unique role, in a sense that apart from the parents, you are probably the next person that the athlete will come into most contact with. And I think one really quick way for coaches to help their athletes really is to check in with them as much as possible, and ask them how they feel about the situation, right? Just being able to provide them their outlet to let it out, I think it's a good way for to help athletes deal with these sort of feelings that they might get, right? Tying into that point is also not to sort of invalidate their responses or their feelings. I think what they're going through helps to normalize that, in a sense that this is something that is normal, right? Anybody going through this process will feel this way. I think athletes perhaps because of by virtue of being athletes, they might feel that they have to be mentally strong all the time, and this is not certainly the case. So being able to show them that it is okay to feel this way, and that you are there for them, really would be very useful. I think in that regard as well, coaches can be a very big pillar of support and guidance by virtue of your life experiences. You could be helping your athletes to navigate this uncertainty as they move forward. I think athletes will certainly be able to leverage on your experiences and your life experiences as they grapple with this situation. And I think also maybe leading on to that point is really to be empathetic towards your athletes' situation. I think it's not something that is easy for them to maybe to perhaps sometimes to speak about, particularly when it comes to emotions. So being there, being empathetic for them, I think will also really help them.
I think the other point is about motivation. Before COVID-19, some would have qualified for a major championship, major youth championship, and then suddenly it's postponed or cancelled, and they lose motivation. What are your thoughts on motivation?
Yeah, I think this is an issue, and based on our conversations with athletes and coaches as well, I think the uncertainty of the sporting calendar moving forward makes it difficult for athletes and coaches to plan, and for them to invest the time and effort with no end in sight. To quote some of my athletes, they ask the question, what are we training for? What is this for? Even some of them are feeling that perhaps the Olympics might not even happen, given how the pandemic is playing out at this point in time. So things are changing and moving rapidly. You could have a competition now scheduled in for end December, but very quickly that could go up in smokes. So I think this issue of motivation is a real thorny issue at this point in time for a lot of athletes and for coaches as well.
So what are some of the concrete suggestions you have for athletes to overcome this loss of motivation?
I think first and foremost, I think we got to recognize that the situation is what it is. There will be that uncertainty. So I think in psychology, we talk a lot about controlling the controllables and the uncontrollables. So what are things you can control really that are within your remit that you can do? I think one big thing is looking at this as an extended period of time where you could do a lot of reflection and reorganization in a sense. So I think one first step is really for coaches and athletes to reflect on their journey so far, to see what has gone well during this qualification phase, or what areas they can improve upon moving forward, right? And I think doing that and then readjusting their goals accordingly would help in giving them some sort of sense of a target or things to improve upon in that manner. Tied into that is really taking the small steps, really not looking too far ahead, because as mentioned, we don't really know what's happening in the medium term in a sense, but certainly looking at, are we able to set small goals leading up in the next 2 to 3 months, looking at, getting our technical or physical capabilities up to circuit breaker levels, and then taking on how can we elevate performance to a level higher than what we were before. I think taking those small steps in terms of the processes rather than on the outcomes can also help provide a sharpened focus for athletes and something to work towards. And I think the last point I would like to make is this idea of looking for opportunities in crisis. We are going through a crisis, but with every crisis, there are opportunities if you look for it. So some, I think, ways that athletes could leverage on this situation is, for example, for the males, maybe now is a good time to think about going to NS earlier so that you can, clear your NS commitments, come out, and then go back to training when the situation, you will assume 2 years later, would be a lot better. Those in school, be it in higher tertiary education or in the IB programs, could also consider, taking on more modules now, such that if you have no time, or rather time or restrictions don't allow you to train to the maximum, maybe it's time to load up on your studies so that you can finish some of these modules earlier, so that you can then have more time later on when the situation with COVID gets better for you to train harder. And I guess a last point really is also, it might be a good time to reconstruct your game, particularly if you have issues or struggle to make breakthroughs in the season before. Then I think it's a good time now to take stock, like I said, reflect and see, with this extended period of time, what can I do to bring myself to the next level?
Well, athletes are going through change. The coaches are also going through change. During circuit breaker, they had to adjust to coaching via Zoom, coaching in ways that they have never thought of before. And even now with phase 2, they also had to adjust to a new way of working. So coaches too have will need some encouragement and some adjustment too.
Yeah, I think those points that I mentioned above, the cancellation of competitions, the loss and grief and the motivation, I think these are aspects that can equally affect coaches, right? It's the sense of loss, now there's no more competition or less competitions to go for, to aim for, to help my athletes achieve results. They could also be experiencing the myriad of emotions associated with those two aspects, right? And then I think there's also perhaps some anxiety in regards to job security, given the situation, funding implications, for instance, or the lack of training availability. These could all perhaps be playing on the minds of coaches, and it could cause them some sort of stress. And perhaps more operationally as well, coaches whom we have spoken to are having to work longer now due to the restrictions. So on the physical and mental side, they're having to work longer hours because they only can work with 5 athletes at a time. So they're stretched longer during the day. And on top of that, given the concerns that we mentioned earlier on, they have to take these on as well. So I think there's almost like a double whammy in a sense. So I think coaches need to be mindful of all these things and to find ways that they can help themselves.
So what suggestions do you have for coaches to cope?
I think take the time out to rest and recover for coaches. So it's really consciously and being aware of doing all these things. So making sure you block your time out to do non-work related stuff and stuff that brings you joy or brings you calm, right? And this could be as simple as going for a stroll, reading a book, making sure you have blocked out time away from work, right? And particularly at this period of time where you're looking to stretch yourself because you feel maybe I need to complete these things for my athletes. But I think it's equally important for you to take care of yourself so that you can give your best to your athletes. We also can encourage coaches to practice some of the mental recovery strategies that we teach to our athletes, and those revolve around doing mindful meditation, be it a brief 5-minute meditation in the morning daily, can help to focus and bring a bit more clarity to your mind. Practicing deep breathing techniques can help to regulate your autonomic system. And then I think one thing that we usually perhaps do daily but are not aware of is really the aspect of sleep with regards to recovery. So making sure you have ample rest, making sure you are taking in 8 hours at least of sleep, high quality sleep a day if you can, so that your body recovers, right? And I think another thing that could be very useful is for coaches to check in with each other. I think the sense of community, or just knowing that somebody else in the same industry or same boat is facing the same issues, you can talk about these things. I think that helps to alleviate some of those stress as well. So I would encourage coaches to check in with your fellow colleagues if you can. Just a simple drop-in message, how are you doing, how are you coping, would I think can go a long way in helping your fellow coaches deal with this difficult situation. And I think the last point that I would like to make is, if you are really struggling as a coach, do feel free to reach out to the sports psychologist that's in charge of the sport for a chat. I think me and my team will always be open to helping coaches who need to speak to one of us. So please do not hesitate to contact us if you are really struggling.
And I believe, Harry, you've got a series of psych workshops lined up for coaches on the topic of self-care.
Yes, we are looking to launch a series of workshops in a month or two's time, revolving around helping coaches to be able to practice self-care, really looking at identifying the stressors and then subsequently corresponding strategies to help them manage these stressors. So do stay tuned to our social media platforms for the details.
Okay, Harry, thanks for taking the time to go through all the different suggestions for athletes and national youth coaches out there. Much appreciated. So we hope you have found this useful as a national youth coach. So look out for the psych workshops that Harry talked about, and we will see you soon. Take care.